Hey guys, Bushcraft 412 here with Northeast Survival and Preparedness. So, you bought a new gun, you brought it home, you're all excited. What do you need to know? What do you need to do? How do you take care of it? And what do you do if there's a problem? We got a lot to cover here, guys. With the current political situation, the whole anti-gun thing, legislation, going on in many states, people are buying guns in record numbers, and a lot of people who are new to firearms are buying them in record numbers. And it's very intimidating getting into that forum and YouTube world, so I wanted to put a video here with some very simple common sense stuff on how to make your experience a little better and how to understand where you should be going with things if you do have a problem. So let's get into this. You got your gun, you got it home, you're all excited. What do? Number one, I recommend read your manual front to back. You'll be surprised. There's a lot of good information in manuals that you just don't get from the forums. You'll learn all about the firearm, how to disassemble it, how to reassemble it, what they recommend for maintenance, all kinds of things about the firearm. I highly suggest reading it. It may be boring, but there may be something in there that you need to know. Number two, disassemble and reassemble the firearm. I always say to do this at home, because trying to do this in the range with no tools, poor lighting, shots going off all around you, always not the best situation. Do it at home, someplace where it's quiet and relaxed, and you can take your time and get to know the firearm. Take it apart several times, put it back together, make sure you can do it flawlessly before you ever consider bringing this to the range. Third thing, clean it. Clean it, clean it. New firearms need to be cleaned. Don't listen to any idiot who says they don't. Clean it. These things come caked with grease and dirt and all kinds of nasty stuff from the factories. Tear it apart, clean it really good, and I even say clean it a second time, because you'll be surprised how much you come up with the second time you missed on the first. New firearms are filthy. From there, take what the manufacturer recommends as for grease or oiling, anything like that for lubrication, and do it at that point. So at this point, your gun, you should understand how it works, how to take it apart, how to put it back together, how to clean it, and have all that said and done before you even think about going to the range with this firearm. Alright, before you go to the range, get yourself a couple different types of ammunition. Especially if you're not familiar with firearms and you are new, try a couple different bullet sizes, a couple different brands, maybe some full metal jackets, maybe some hollow points, a good variety of stuff. You want to try different ammo in your gun to make sure, number one, it's going to be reliable with all different kinds of ammunition. Two, to see what kind of accuracy you get out of the various ammunitions. And three, just because you want to have a good understanding of what your gun is capable of. I see a lot of people who only buy Winchester white box, and then they go out and try different ammo, and their gun shoots so much better with it, and then they feel kind of like, oh geez, I missed out because I always bought Winchester white box. Try a few things. Try some expensive, try some cheap, try some middle of the line. You'll be surprised. Find what you like, and then stock up on it. You really need to try a couple different types before you commit to an ammo. Because trust me, there can be a big difference in accuracy from one brand to the next. And price is not always a good indicator of how accurate bullets are going to be in your firearm. Okay, you get to the range. What do you want to do? Number one, new gun at the range. I always like to dry fire a handful of times before I get to shooting. Make sure, of course, you should already know this if you read about your firearm and you've done your research. You should know if the manufacturer says it's okay to dry fire. And if it's not, pick yourself up a snap cap, which is a little fake casing that you can put in the gun to allow you to dry fire it. Give that trigger a few pulls in a safe direction, of course, at the range. Make sure you understand how the trigger feels, and test the gun for function to make sure that everything, of course, is working correctly and that you did reassemble it. Alright, do your shooting, shoot your different ammo. I like to keep a good record of the ammo, so what I try to do is take one target for each box of ammo, write the name of the ammo on it, and then when you're done, you can actually look at it and compare your different ammos and see which one really was the best at the end of the day. And you can also write notes and things like that, so that if down the line you want to switch ammos, you can go back to your trusty little pile of targets and say, oh yeah, this is the ammo that did really good that day. So I like to do that. Alright, so your gun shot, hopefully it went flawlessly for you. If not, we're going to get to that. So you've had a problem. What do you do? Now, new guns can have all sorts of different problems. And guys, don't freak out. It's not always a big deal for a gun to have a problem initially. They do have what's called a break-in, just like a vehicle. It can take a couple hundred rounds for your firearm to finally settle down and work properly. You have to remember, this is a manufactured device. It's not, well, maybe your gun's handmade, but if it's anything like mine, it's not handmade, and it's made in a factory. And in the factory, they usually just test fire these things once or twice to make sure they work. They don't do a lot of testing with each individual firearm. So maybe you have a problem. You have to understand, number one, break-in problems are very common, they're not unusual, and they will go away fairly quickly. And if your gun is clean and assembled properly, most of the time those break-in problems will be very minimal. And mostly it's just going to take for whatever part is having friction or friction issues basically to wear down enough where that friction is no longer impeding the firearm. So if you are having an issue, take the firearm apart there at the range and look to see if the finish is getting worn down anywhere, and that will tell you that's the area that's having friction. Maybe put a little extra oil on that spot. That might help it out. So sometimes a quick take it apart, look for spots where the finish is rubbing, a little oil. And guys, don't freak out. Finish is going to rub off your gun. It's not fine china. It's a gun. Especially when you pull it off and you look in the slide, there's going to be spots on the slide rails and all that where things are going to rub. You're going to get some wear and tear. That's just firearms, guys. Get over it. You don't eat off it, you shoot it. But if you see those things and you're having issues, try a little gun oil. See if it helps it out. Now, you're going to hear a lot of people say guns don't need to break in. Those people are what's called bullshitters. Guns do have a break-in. Not every gun has a problem during its break-in. And also, just because you spend a lot of money doesn't mean your gun won't have a break-in. Expensive guns have break-ins just as much as cheap guns. Guns with really tight tolerances, guns with really loose tolerances, anything can happen. Break-in problems are common. Don't freak out. But if they continue over a couple boxes of ammo, it might be more than a break-in problem. So, if the problem resolves, you're good. You're done. Shoot, have a great time with the gun. But if not, this problem continues, now it's time to start looking at it. Is this problem a consistent problem or is it a random problem? If gun's having a failure to fire, failure to eject, double feeds, all different kinds of random errors, oftentimes it's an issue that's not really a problem with the gun, but something's wrong. Maybe too much grease, too much oil, not enough grease, not enough oil. Maybe you didn't clean it well enough. Maybe, there's something going on there that's impeding the firearm and giving you malfunctions. So at that point, I would break the gun down, clean it again. Remember, guys, I often, when I bring a gun to the range, will run my cleaning rod down the barrel after every 5 or 10 shots that first time at the range. Just, a little bit of solvent on the brush, run it through a couple of times, clean it out a little bit. Helps the barrel break in, helps the gun break in, give it a wipe down real quick. These things get gunky pretty quick, and when they're new, even a couple of bullets can, before they're broken in, can really make a difference. So if the problem's persisting, clean the gun really good. Clean it good, try it again. If you're still having a problem, it's time to start really looking harder. Get on the internet, start looking, check forums, check YouTube, start looking. Of course, you're going to put up there, okay, I've got this gun, I've got a problem, and some jerk-off's going to say, oh, it's a piece of shit, you should have bought a Glock. You know what, it's the fact of life. People are just like that. You're going to have to deal with it if you're going to be a firearm owner. Then you're going to get the extractor people. Every time somebody sees a firearm problem, they're always going to tell you it's an extractor. Why? Because it's the only part they know that breaks commonly on guns, so people always say, oh, I bet you it's an extractor. Extractors do very commonly break. They're thin, they're metal, They're a high wear and tear piece, so people tend to say it a lot because it is the problem a lot of the times. But they're not saying it because they know it, they're saying it because it's a common problem. So don't rush to send your gun back to the manufacturer. Spend some time to make sure it isn't you. You have to bear in mind your grip could be affecting how the gun fires. Always make sure you have somebody else fire it and make sure that they're having the same error. There's a thing that's called limp wristing, where if you don't hold the pistol tight enough, you can actually lose some of the energy. It gets absorbed by your hand being limp, and the slide will not go back all the way, and it will not rechamber the new round. Have someone else try it. There's no shame in having a grip problem. Some guns, are very picky about grip, so have someone else try it. If the problem goes away, it's your grip, guys. Suck it up. Get one of those little hand exercisers and toughen up a little bit and go back at it. Don't give up. Sometimes it does take a little time to build up the strength in your hands to be able to hold some of these higher caliber guns tight enough to really make them reliable. And some guns are finicky about it, so trust me. And don't be ashamed of it, guys. Keep at it. Don't give up because one gun doesn't is finicky on how you hold it. So look for things like that. How do you hold the gun? Is your thumb maybe rubbing against the slide? Are you wearing a shirt that's catching the slide? Look at things like that. Silly things. You'd be surprised how many times people are wearing a big puffy jacket and then their gun is not working right and they don't realize that it's catching on their jacket, or that their jacket's just causing a little bit of friction with the slide that's not letting it chamber correctly. So look at all that. Look at the hole. Have someone else try it. Maybe it is something you're doing. And that's, it's part of learning, guys. That's how you get good at guns, is realizing that we make mistakes. So look at these things, spend some time, try a couple boxes of ammo, maybe switch up your ammo, try some different things. Maybe it's the weather, guys. Maybe it's cold, maybe it's warm, maybe it's humid. Something's making the gun act funny. Who knows? Bring it back, try it again another day. If you're still having some problem, maybe now it's time to contact the manufacturer. You'd be surprised. The manufacturers get calls on these things all the time. This SDVE here will not shoot PMC bronze ammo. It jams up all the time. Every other ammo, it works flawlessly. I called Smith & Wesson and they were like, yep, we know that. It just doesn't work with PMC ammo that good. So sometimes the manufacturers will know these things and can point you in the right direction. Especially when it comes to things like maybe the feed ramps need to be polished, or maybe, maybe there is a problem they're aware of, and, you can send it back to them and get it fixed real easy. But you do see in the forums a lot of people tell you immediately, send the gun back, send the gun back. I'm not a big fan of this. Number one, when you send a gun back and demand a replacement, especially for something trivial like a hard break-in, you're costing everyone else money. I don't think that's fair to the community. I don't think it's fair to everyone else. It's unrealistic expectations, and you see it a lot on forums where people are like, oh, the gun failed to fire, send it back, send it back. Why should you deal with that? If the gun's got a legitimate problem, send it back. If you think maybe it's, a break-in or whatever, hold on a little bit, because it does. All these people who send these guns back over anything, it costs everybody money when people act like that. Sorry for the rant, but alright. So there you go. Problems occur a lot with new guns. You wouldn't be surprised how often, but be patient. Try and be analytical about it. I know it gets frustrating. You got a new gun, you're excited, but it won't shoot right. Something's going on. Try to be analytical. Try to look at it. Have someone else look at it and try and figure it out. And don't go with that automatic, it's an extractor thing, because I'm telling you, everyone's going to try it. And 90% of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, new gun, the problem is user related. So keep that in mind. It may be your cleaning, it may be your maintenance, it may be how you shoot, it may be anything. So look at all those things, eliminate, and if someone else is having the same problem, then it's, time to start sending things back. But new firearms can be very intimidating, especially when you're new. It's tough to ask for help. You don't know who to trust and who not to trust. So oftentimes, it can be very frustrating. I definitely understand that, and I hope this video has helped you out if you are having problems with a new firearm.